Well, good morning, and let's get our webinar started this morning. So, I'm delighted to be joined by Jacques Malan from Zama Tech. Welcome, Jacques. I'm really pleased to have you joining me this morning as our guest.
Thanks, Joe.
Just a couple of housekeeping points to raise. We are recording this webinar, so we're going to make an on-demand version available to everybody who's registered. So if you're listening to this on demand, whether you've attended or not, this is our on-demand version. We will try and make some time at the end for any questions that anybody may have in relation to the presentation. Happy to answer those live if we've got time at the end. And we're scheduled to run today for 45 minutes. So that will give us time to have a chat, Jacques, and also have a look at the product in action as well. So just to kick things off, Jacques, could you perhaps give us an introduction to Zama and how you got into the world of anti-money laundering?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacques. I'm the managing director and owner and wear a lot of hats at Zama Technologies. We started off as I was a partner within an accounting firm, not as an accountant, but working as a technology consultant within the firm. We used to help all our clients with integrations to Xero and so on, and we got into a lot of integration work between CRM system, practice management systems, and typically accounting systems. And I was very lucky to meet up with some really great developers while we were doing that. We ended up being one of the first, I think the first UK-based developers who became Xero developer partners. And so we were kind of very early in that space, helping people integrate into accounting systems. And so generally speaking, we grew within that accounting firm to the point where our technology department was doing a lot more technology-based work. And so we split that department from being integrated into the accounting firm to being its own company. And that was the start of Zama Technologies. I teamed up with some amazing developers who are based within Germany. And we started to essentially run some larger technology projects. At that point, we didn't even know about anti-money laundering. We exhibited in XeroCon, one of the very kind of earlier ones. And at that point, I met an accountant who was quite forward thinking, and he was thinking about a better way of streamlining the onboarding journey. And he asked me whether we could do an integration rather than into an accounting system. Could we integrate into CreditSafe, which is one of the better known kind of identity verification providers? And we realized that it sounded quite easy to do. He was using Salesforce at the time, and we wanted to integrate the two systems, and we saw how hard it was to actually bring together the different parts of what's available for identity verification. So it's about collecting documents, it's running AML checks, it's monitoring people for their change of status, it's doing client risk assessments. But all these tools were so super disjointed. It was just like it created more work rather than actually being easy to do. I think we spent about, it was tens of thousands of pounds of work on developing that solution. And we just at that point saw the opportunity to create something which was easily accessible, which could be kind of a pay-as-you-go version of what essentially 5 years ago was a tens of £1,000 project. We could essentially package up in a SaaS product and offer to accountants, make it really easily accessible. That's how we got into it. The journey then kind of, we started off with very basic product to begin with. And for the last 3 years, we've steadily built on top of that up to where we are now, which is kind of what we're offering. More than 1,000 accountants use the platform now every day. Not every day, every month. And yeah, we're still very much in the process of building out those tools.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry, that's a long story, but gives you a good overview.
No, I mean, impressive number of users there, Jacques. So, in your view, what do you think the sort of pain points are that you're addressing with the solution that you're seeing going out to your clients at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the stuff which people essentially come to us with. They come to us with this kind of problem or a preconception of what it is that they need for anti-money laundering. Typically, that is, I would like to get some AML checks, some electronic checks. I've heard of these electronic checks. They're meant to make life easier, and you offer them on a pay-as-you-go basis, which is, suits a lot of different firms, that pricing strategy. But really, if you dig into the underlying what people actually need, I think it's solving the confusion around what is actually needed by accountants for anti-money laundering. Electronic checks can really help in that regard. Having access to them as part of the solution makes it easier for you to manage. But how you use them in the bigger picture is really kind of the answer which accountants are looking for. They get lots of different advice from regulatory bodies. There's like 22 or 24 of these regulatory bodies, all providing information about AML. On the other side, you get vendors. I mean, we're a vendor as well, but you get vendors who's really pushing electronic checks and per unit, and you have to run so many checks, and that's going to solve all your AML problems. And on the other side, you get accountants on social media, on link, wherever it is, in conferences, telling their stories about AML. So I think where it really helps our kind of most common user coming into the platform is really taking them through a step-by-step process, focusing on what is important. And that's not about just the customer due diligence part. It's putting in place a practical policy and procedures, which is going to help you and your staff manage the day-to-day process. It's giving access to the tools to streamline those processes, and then all the way through to being able to consolidate the information and making anti-money laundering a useful, valuable exercise. As long as it's just going to be a tick box exercise, it's going to drag you down. Whereas if you can turn it into a process that generates value for your business, improving the type of customers that you're working with, you can really then see the benefit from that. And that's where, I think that's certainly what we're aiming to do. And what we're aiming to do with the platform is solve that kind of, it's a big ask, but get people into kind of a different frame of mind when they're looking at AML.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, the key improvements that you've seen clients make as a result of having your product, within their practice, what would you say were the biggest improvements that they see?
I think it's kind of what I've touched on already, but how does that work? I think it's the ability to consolidate all your AML data into one place. Many people come to us. Everybody has done AML. Like if you've had a firm and you've been running for a number of months or years, you've had to do anti-money laundering. Now, people would do it in many different ways. They would collect IDs through emails. They would meet people in person. They would create Word documents with risk assessments on it. Typically, it's a disjointed process, and the whole onboarding process it's bigger than just AML. The whole thing is quite disjointed in terms of letters of engagements and all these things that's happening. So if you can consolidate that process into one place, you can actually start reporting on the data that you're putting inside of the system that's where we're seeing people go, oh, well, I've got confidence in what I've got and what I haven't got now. And I can build on this thing. You know, I've got a solid baseline to then stay on top of AML. And we see that I go maybe twice a month, I help some of our users to navigate through reviews from their supervisors. And you can see the difference in just having a little bit more confidence in what you're doing and knowing that everything that you've done is accessible. You've got an audit trail of what you've done for every customer. You've got a policy and procedures in place. You've got your training records in place. It's just being organized, I think, is the main kind of thing which we offer people, and what software in general offer people to be able to get things into a system and have a systematic approach to AML, rather than what can be, I'm doing this thing in this time, and a month from now I'm doing that slightly different, and before you know it, you've lost track of exactly what's going on within your anti-money laundering systems. Okay.
I'm interested, Jacques, just to see in terms of the audience what they're doing at the moment. So I was just going to launch a very quick poll here, which is how do you manage AML at the moment? So it's a fully manual process, manual with some help from electronic checks, risk assessments done manually, or a fully managed system. So if everybody could just give me some indication of what they're doing. Okay, so what we're seeing here, Jacques, in all manual with some help from electronic checks, risk assessments done manually, which I guess is something that you see regularly from the clients that approach you.
Absolutely. I don't think that's much of a surprise. I think if you ask those people which systems they're using, it'll be, you know, typical Credit Safe or Verify, or one of these systems. You know, it's not called fully managed systems isn't that common, and they're quite new on the market. You know, we were certainly one of the first to come through. I think Iris had a version of it as well, pretty much at the same time. We're seeing a bit more of them now coming through. And it's just a common thing where people go, well, that is what I was talking about, it being slightly disjointed in terms of, I'm running a check on a third-party system, but then I have to do something with that. I still need a process or a system that running separate to the person who's providing me with the electronic check, in order to then incorporate that into my client risk assessment, managing, you know, when am I rechecking that person? All those kind of things are sitting outside of the provider. And these providers are keen to tell you they're giving you everything that you need. And I'm not dissing them. I'm actually using, you know, we use Credit Safe as a provider ourselves. I'm just saying we're a different type of solution, where we're bringing those electronic checks and making them available in a different environment. So essentially, you know, we're kind of a very different proposition to what they are. You can access those exact same checks, just do it in a different, more systematic, integrated way. And then, of course, we kind of go a step further. We say AML, that whole system is not a standalone system in itself. That's why we integrate wherever we can. We integrate with practice management systems, because you're running your onboarding, your client onboarding process in your practice management system, or maybe you're using Ignition or Go Proposal, or you know, there's all these different systems that's part of the onboarding process. And AML absolutely has to fit into that process seamlessly if you want to get away from doing it as a checklist exercise at the end of an engagement, and then you lose all the value that AML can bring to the table.
I know one of your key objectives is to integrate with other systems, so open API technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where it starts. Not all firms have the capabilities or technical ability to use open APIs. But what an open API allows other people to do is integrate with your system. So
Right.
we started off very much, hammering on practice management systems doors. Like Pixie was the first one. We needed to integrate with somebody so that people could take notice of us and start using us as a product alongside another product that was already being used fairly well. So we were integrating with other people and trying to knock down the doors that, a lot of accounting solutions have these kind of brick walls which you can't get through because they like to keep things to themselves quite a lot. But as soon as we got through Pixie, we also integrated with Carbon. We've recently integrated with QuickBooks Practice Manager. But because we've got an open API now, what we're seeing is that other people are starting to integrate with us. And probably the best example, and I'm not comparing us to Xero, but that's kind of what Xero did in the beginning. And they said, okay, we're going to be integrated into other systems, and we're going to invite other people to integrate with us. And really, that's the way we've always worked. And like I said, right at the beginning, we were always integrating other systems into accounting systems. So that's core to what we want to achieve, is focus on AML. That's our thing. We don't want to do anything other than AML. And we want to work with the tools that's doing other stuff brilliantly as well. And that way, that's in my opinion, the way accountants can get to the solution they need in order to do onboarding their way. There's no system out there that can do everything for everyone. So that is what we aim to be, is that kind of AML cog in the wheel, or wheel in
I know your commercial model is very different to a lot of the vendors that are on the market at the moment, regardless of whether it's AML or any other SaaS-based system. Could you just perhaps take us through that model and why you've chosen that route?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to being a bootstrap company. We've never had any funding. We're very strong on product. I'm a technology person. We've got extremely good developers who's partners and shareholders in the business and invest a lot of their time. So we were always going to be strong on the product side, potentially not that strong on the marketing and sales side and those kind of things. And so what we couldn't really afford a high cost of acquisition. We didn't have the money to come in with the huge campaigns to get people on board. So what we essentially did was, and that was like essentially the barrier I was trying to bring down, is this barrier to entry to start using these AML tools more effectively. And we essentially said, well, let's make a lot of the product free of charge. So there's no monthly subscription. We're not tying you into a contract. Everything that's true about the AML industry, we kind of wanted to turn on its head. Like, people go into these contracts with providers. I won't name any names. People would probably know who they are, but as soon as you've signed the contract, they're kind of on your case to renew the contract for the next year. We wanted to get completely away from that, because that was essentially what was going to make us unique, what was going to get people to sign up with us. And as soon as we got people signing up with us, that model kind of encouraged people to refer us to others. And because other people, they certainly, there's a lot of early adopters within the accounting technology space, and people like to have a look. And if they like what they see, they encourage other people to do the same. And we didn't want to put any barriers in front of that kind of process. And that's really been where all of our growth has come from, which has been absolutely tremendous, because it's the best kind of growth, I think, is the kind of organic referral growth. And we are I think we probably leave a lot of money on the table in terms of the free products that we give away, but on the other side, we're not spending that money on attracting new customers. So it's always a balancing act for us, and that's why we've gone that route. We're certainly now starting to build up product features which are generally aimed more at larger firms or firms which are growing more quickly. And people can upgrade and subscribe to those premium features if they want to, and that will become a monthly fee. But for by far the biggest percentage of our customer base, they have loads of tools for free, and they kind of pay for these electronic checks they would pay for anyway at Credit Safe or Verify or whatever it is. They just pay us for it instead, but they get all the other product kind of wrapped around it as well. So that's been what we've been trying to achieve, and it's been working very, very well for us.
No, it's interesting. I mean, the freemium model is rarely used, but I think you're testament to the fact that it's working for you, which is great. I want to have a chat with you about your future plans for the product, but before we do that, Jacques, can I suggest that we perhaps dive in and have a look at the product, and then we'll come back and have a chat about where it's going from here. I'll let you share screen so that you've got the ability to get in and show us.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So I don't normally one of these full demos take a good while. So what I'm going to show is just really an overview of what's in the product. I'm not going to go through too much else. I'll very briefly show you, how you can onboard a new client, but I'm really going to whiz through it without too much explanation. So I mentioned, what we're doing differently is keeping all information in one place. So this is kind of a good view of that. You have all your clients within Zama. You can see instantly who's got a risk assessment, and you can see what the level of risk is for that client as well. And that's really what AML is all about. You want to establish where is the risk within your client base and within your firm. This stuff also comes and wraps up into graphs and charts, and you can export this data, and it can be used within your firm-wide risk assessment. So not only do you see, which clients are high risk, but you see where is that risk. Is it because they're a politically exposed person? Is it because of the type of business they are? Do they have a lot of cash transactions? Is it where they operate? Is it the services that you provide to them, or is it how you deal with them? Is it face-to-face or remote? So you start having a real-time view of risk across your organization, almost like, again, if you look at Zero brought this kind of real-time accounting to the industry, and it's absolutely changed it, and that's made accounting so much more valuable. If you want your AML to be valuable, you should be having a real-time view of what's going on, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. We also have another part of the dashboard. This is just keeping you on top of tasks. So if I've sent out an identity, a request for an identity document, not everybody responds, funnily enough, for those. So you have to chase them up. But who do you chase them up, and how do you do it? You can do it all through the system. We have a compliance area, and I've touched on this as well. This area is all about trying to take the guesswork out of what it is that you should be doing for AML. This was actually one of our larger customers came to us and said, this is what I need. Can't you just build it? And we thought, well, actually, that it really would be very useful for every person who's coming into the platform could do with this. And it starts off by helping you familiarize yourself with the Zama system. Generally, we don't have a massive onboarding, process when users come to us. You can absolutely go through these lists. You can look at each step of setting up and familiarizing yourself with the account. Each section has an explanation of why that's important to do, how to do it, and where you would go to do that. So it's really just very simple to work through that. But then it goes on to, policies and procedures. we provide a template for people to use, which policy and procedure has to be what you're doing day to day. So if it doesn't work with the systems you're working with, that policy and procedures isn't right for your firm. So whether you've got your own policy and procedures or whether you choose to use ours, there's valuable information in there to look at. And again, we explain all that in this checklist, and it all goes all the way through to how you do firm-wide risk assessments as well. Then we have training. So we have lots of training resources about how you can use the product. Everything is kind of short 5-minute videos about how you're doing different things. I'm going to run through a very quick new client onboarding. So you'll probably have questions afterwards. These videos will tell you exactly in detail how each one of those steps work. And we also have AML courses. This is more about understanding why people are doing AML, what's the benefits, and what you need to know in terms of the guidelines, not getting into trouble, those kind of things. And we have courses which are for all staff. And then we also partner with Calathea Solutions to provide us with some courses for MLROs and senior staff. And we're going to be adding to this very much over the course of the next year, more courses specific to refresher courses and specifically spotting different areas of money laundering as well. Anyway, so that's very, very briefly just kind of the different areas of the product. You can kind of see we're addressing a wider thing here than just getting someone's identity document. So what does that process looks like? Because that is generally what people are interested in, is like, what do I do if I have a new client? Now we integrate with a lot of different products, and that might mean that these clients are automatically created. But in this case, I'm just going to use it as a standalone system. I'm going to create a new company, and I'm going to just onboard Zama Technologies as an example. We have a link into Company's House. So I can just look up Zama from here, and then I can see who's the directors, who's the shareholders. I can pick who I want to add as part of the onboarding process, and I create that client record. And here you can kind of see, this is where I'm going to start building up all my AML information. Everything stays in here. You have a history of everything as well if you're repeating certain actions. We'll get to the risk assessment. What I'm going to just do to begin with is collect my identity document and those kind of things, something everybody has to do. And in order to do that, all I need is my email address and my name. I can save that, and then I can send what we call an onboarding request. Onboarding request, essentially, we always ask for someone's home address, a copy of an ID, and then we can also choose to collect a proof of address. I'm going to skip that just to keep us in time. We're going to talk about the future plans. In a week or two, you'll also be able to do biometric checks optionally. So asking somebody to take a picture of themselves, that gets matched to the passport, all those kind of nice things. But really, it's always been for us to keep this journey as simple as possible from the customer's point of view. Really professional, but not about downloading apps, all those kind of things. So this sends out a request. This is monitored. I can come in, I can send a reminder from here. And if I just go to my email now, I can see this is the email that I receive. It comes from your email address. You can change these templates. It can say anything that you want. It'll have your logo on here, but it's browser based. And we always ask somebody to click on a link to move forward. So within here, you can see this takes them through the onboarding journey. Most people do it on their phone, in which case they can just take pictures as they go. This is also white labeled, so you'll have your own logo. You can put your own messages here. But what we ask for is person's address. Now, this is a public demo, so I'm just going to put some random information in here. which means the checks will probably not come through very well. But unfortunately, that is the nature of these demos. You can't share too much when it goes out into the public domain. So pushing up a passport or a driving license, again, people can now just take a picture with their phone. If they've got a copy of the ID, they can put that in. For me, I'm just putting in an example passport here. This is one that's published by the Home Office, so everybody can see it anyway. And then I can upload that document. And that's it from the customer's point of view. We'll introduce the selfie capability very soon as well, but it's really simple. It's secure. Nothing goes into people's email inboxes. Nothing goes into people's local drives. And it comes through straight into this contact record where I sent it from. So if I refresh this page, you'll see here that record has come through. Now, that process does a few things. It verifies the document. Now, in this case, the document's been picked up as expired. It extracts the document data. So things like the passport number, the date of birth, the expiry date, all of that's extracted from the document. I also get that proof of address that somebody has sent through. And like I said, we use other people's checks. Like, we don't do all these checks ourselves. What Zama does is it creates a space where all these checks comes together and works together in unison. And so we use a company called GBG for the identity document verification. We don't hide that fact. We're proud of the partners that we use. They're one of the biggest global providers of identity verification services used by the Home Office and so on. And so if I go down this list, it gives me a report of that document. It'll check all sorts of different things, whether things are of good quality, whether information is present, and also it checks for digital tampering, stuff like that as well. That information is essentially something I receive. I can see this has gone in review because the document is expired. I can then in Zama start making decisions and take notes. So these are all things which are useful to keep track of. Like, I can say, okay, I'm going to pass this because this is a demo. So I can pass that. It's going to record my decision. It's going to record my notes. I can then say, well, I'm happy with what I've got here. I can copy this information I've collected to the contact record. So select everything that I've collected, and I copy that to my contact record. Now, this is all the information that you might, type into systems like Credit Safe or Verify and get an AML result. But of course, we all have that. We have this information in here now. So I can just go and run an AML check on it. So it's, again, just a click of a button, and I can run an AML check. Now, I'm never going to get a pass result with the information I've put in here. That's the purpose of an AML check. It essentially checks that the information that I've provided, the address, name, date of birth, that those things match. If it doesn't, it's going to give me a refer result, and I can go and have a look at the full report that's generated to see, where it couldn't match information. An AML check also provides you with information about politically exposed people. So if it's finding a potential match, and it also checks for sanctions. But Zama also allows you to add other information. So it's not just about relying on electronic checks. If you've got historic documents, let's say I've got an ID document for myself, I've got my LinkedIn profile, even I use sometimes as an example. Everything that you want, you can upload in here to be supporting documentation. And we don't charge anything for document management. You can upload all your historic stuff in here, keep everything in one place for free. Once I've got this check, though, and I want to kind of record my decisions in here, I can say review AML. I can again start making my decisions. I'm going to pass this because it's a demo. And then my PEP result, I can have a look at. But at the moment, I'm not entirely sure who that PEP was. So I can go and save that for the time being. I can view this full report. Now, the full report's going to give me all sorts of information about this person. It doesn't give me any more information. It just gives me, where could we match information. And so here I can see this is the political exposed person that it found. It's a pretty fuzzy match, and I can easily see, well, that's not actually the same person as my client. If it's a closer match, then you're going to have a look at that and say, yeah, that is or isn't a person. And then the rest here is just about where it can find address matches and stuff like that. It's pretty familiar stuff. In any case, I can go and say, dismiss that match. I can make all my notes and say save, and that's everything done then. Okay, so that's the idea about onboarding individuals. The final thing, which I'll very briefly touch on because we're running short of time, I know. I always get carried away a little bit, but is the risk assessments. And risk assessments is as important, if not more important, than the due diligence you do across the individuals. So adding a risk assessment, you can see here we've got loads and loads of different options. Now, when you sign up to Zama, you'll get two example assessments. But one of the big strengths about Zama and what we've spent a lot of time developing is the flexibility of client risk assessments. And it goes back to every firm being different, and every risk assessment has to match what your firm wants to assess in terms of their clients. You work with different types of clients. Nobody works with the same type of clients. And so these risk assessments should reflect that flexibility as well. So you can build up as many of these templates as you wish. You can even pre-populate these templates. And this is what that risk assessment looks like. I won't populate or complete it, but basically at the top, you can select, this is a normal risk client. You can say who's prepared it, who's reviewed it, what the date of it is. Underneath that, this is the template that I've been talking about. Here you have all these questions that you can answer, and you can change these questions. You can change the options. It's really good in terms of only asking you for relevant information. So this second question only pops up if you have answered yes to the first question, of course. So, it directs you what you should answer and nothing more. And you can always make comments on the side and save those as kind of optional comments to keep track of what you're doing. So once you've completed that, and you can upload documents again, you have a view of all the directors and shareholders at the bottom. So it's kind of your summary of what you've done across a client to see everything in one place. And then once you've approved that, that's when that risk gets locked in. Any case, that is how you end up with essentially a risk assessment for every client. Everything underneath there is stored within Zama for as long as you need it. And then you keep on top of that. You do these reviews every year. You renew information when you need to. But yeah, hopefully that was very quick, but I hope I gave you a bit of an idea of what's in there.
No, thank you, thank you, Jacques. That's great, and I'm impressed with the amount of functionality that's in here as well. Really, really clever. One kind of final question to ask you. I know you covered some of the plans for 24 about biometrics and selfies and so on. Are there any other features that you want to touch on before I give the delegates an opportunity to engage and sign up for a free trial with you?
Yeah, we are so excited about next year. I mean, the biometric stuff, I hope after this webinar, I'm going to go back to testing. So I hope we would have that ready and deployed already in 2023. In the first quarter of next year, what we really want to do is we've got a premium subscription, which we'll have we can touch on that as well, but we have a campaign running for premium later on this month.
Yeah.
But really what we're doing with that is to allow people with larger client bases to monitor more information and organize more information. So the first thing we're doing within January is we're incorporating a new provider, which we've partnered with. They're called ComplyAdvantage. Many of the bigger financial institutions use them to monitor contacts for political exposure and sanctions, and also for adverse media. So if a client comes up in an article within a local newspaper or something like that, it can help you monitor that. So that's a big part of it. A lot of people are asking for it. We're being very careful with it because monitoring can generate an awful lot of noise in the anti-money laundering process, and we want to make sure that people get the right level of information, and that it doesn't overwhelm them and all they do is kind of deal with these monitoring events. And then the other big part of what we're doing is bringing in staff into AML. So a big part of, like, the first thing people ask for is, where's your staff training records? Where's the history of that? And we offer the training, but we also would like to, give people the option to track all that training for staff. And that'll also mean you can apply or you can allocate staff to different clients, sort your client lists much better, and so on. But yeah, that's just a brief taster. We're also got some, things we're not really talking publicly about yet, which is just too good to share.
Don't give it away to your competition yet.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think it's going to, really, make people's lives quite different in terms of AML.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I've given, we are up against time now, Jacques. So I'm going to I'm running a poll at the moment just to ask if anybody would like to start a free trial after this webinar. Please feel free to complete that. We can capture those results and send those on. And of course, for any more information that you'd like from Jacques or Zama, then the details are now on the screen. I'm presume you're happy, Jacques, that people can email you directly or visit the website and they can onboard and start a free trial.
Absolutely.
Immediately. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. We encourage people to just, go in and sign up. You'll immediately get you get £15 worth of free credits if you sign up. It gives you the ability to use the whole platform, including the paid kind of pay-as-you-go checks. Yeah, and then, you get pretty much everything you need, but we are always there if you have questions
Thank you.
to answer. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay, so if you are watching this on demand, as I say, details are on the screen now. Visit the website, sign up, get in touch with Jacques if you'd like more information. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jacques. I'm very impressed with the product. From a marketing perspective, very impressed with the freemium model and the disruptor tactics. That's great. And I know your 1,000 users are giving you some really good feedback at the moment, so that is really good to hear. Thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for having me, Joe. And we'll catch up.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye to
Thank you.
everybody.